Is climate change becoming a global cult? Let's have a look. Good evening, everyone. Florian here, and welcome to another episode of Heiser Says. I've got my stein of coffee, and I thought I would share this image with you. I took it this morning. I went on a school camp with my daughter. We are homeschooling through a distance education school here in Queensland, and they have camps. And for prep to grade 3, the parents would come along. So Mina and I went to this camp here along the Brisbane River. It's literally like 20 minutes, 25 minutes if I'm driving the smart way from our house there. And we went kayaking along the river today. We went for a bushwalk to have a look at the weir. And this is what we woke up to. A beautiful scene here. You can see here, Mina's staring off, looking at the fog. And I was just there, trying to get the energy to get a coffee. Because, every time you go camping, it rains every single time. So this is what we did for school today. What did other people do for school? Let's have a look at this article from the Daily Mail. Kids as young as 10, so only 4 years older than my daughter, trashed a politician's office while chanting "Kill ScoMo" as thousands of students skipped school for a climate change protest. Okay? Thousands of students skipped school. And I can't blame them for skipping school, honestly. I cannot. I have no confidence in the public education system at all. None at all. We're not really doing it the traditional way, so that really can't surprise anyone. But the fact that they're chanting "Kill ScoMo," just think about that. Think how that sounds. So we'll read through this article, and we'll look at another article I found, because someone shared this yesterday, that this protest was happening. And I thought, well, that's old news. That's just happened. Oh, no, it's happening again. It's happening again. So people are using these children to create an emotional response from everyone for political purposes. And I found an article looking at climate change as a comparison to a cult. 10 warning signs of a dangerous organization. And once you see it in that light, you're not going to be able to unsee it. You really are not. And I'm not being critical about, or even discussing, I don't even care about, is the climate going to die as humanity? Is there an issue? Sensibly, are humans having a significant impact on the environment? That's irrelevant to this discussion. What I'm putting forward is that the climate change concept and group surrounding it has developed into a cult-like frenzy. Why else are children being encouraged, chanting "Kill ScoMo"? Who else does that? What other organizations do that? I wonder. So school children barged into Anthony Albanese's office demanding he come out. "We just want to kill ScoMo," children reportedly yelled at protest. Activist group claims 75 strikes at federal MPs' offices around Australia. So this isn't the children setting this up. This is not the children. This is activists. This is activists using your kids. If your kids are going to school, if you feel proud that your children are going in these protests, they're being used. They're puppets. Okay? Your children are being used as puppets. About 500 school students rally outside former PM Tony Abbott's Manly office. Children plan to picket polling booths on election day for adults to vote climate. Oh, wow. This shows you this is just emotional manipulation. Hundreds of students, some as young as 10, have stormed politicians' offices in nationwide protest to demand more action on climate change on Friday. Activists claimed up to 500 students made a racket with kazoos outside the Merrickville office of federal MP Anthony Albanese. I'm a bit tired, guys. Witnesses reported children barging into his office, yelling insults at staff and demanding the Shadow Minister for Infrastructure come out. "We have kazoos and are not afraid to use them," one protester yelled, according to the Daily Telegraph. "We just want to kill ScoMo," another said. Oh, my. Stop Adani. Okay, little kid there. If you stop Adani, the coal will be sourced from Indonesia. That means there will be a significantly higher, up to a third, carbon footprint of the coal. So by stopping Adani, you're not only increasing unemployment in Australia, investment opportunities in Australia, but you're increasing damage to the environment. Okay? That's not climate skepticism. That's science. Now, the problem is a lot of these people, these greenies, of course, these kids don't understand, but the activists, they've got such a parochial view, a small world view, a local view, a tiny little corner view. They don't realize you need to think about these things in a global scale. Why do the globalists not see things in a global scale? I don't understand. You'd think they would. Other young students were heard chanting, "No more oil, keep our carbon in the soil," while some reportedly stood on chairs in the reception area as other classmates tossed "Stop Adani" posters on the floor. Now, if these kids, that's a school uniform, that's a school uniform, that's a school uniform, they should all be expelled. That's a school uniform. They should all be expelled. Shouldn't they? I mean, if just think about this. Back in the day, if you had have gone and done something like this, what would have happened to the kids? They would have been expelled out of school. The principal would have called you up in assembly and you would have been expelled. What is going on? But so obviously the unions, I imagine, in the education sector are encouraging this. They're encouraging this because they know every vote for the Greens is a vote for Labor. That's what it is. That is what it is. They're worried that shortfall shorten is just going to give us the green recession we had to have. And people are wising up to it, the fact that he just can't give any figures. And we'll look at that in a future episode. So that they're using these emotional techniques to get people to vote for the Greens. Maybe that's it. Activists have claimed 75 strikes took place. Oh, I've already read that. About 500 students protested. Yep, we've read that. The group said after today the children will turn their attention to recruiting hundreds of students to turn out on polling booths across the country on election day. I mean, there you go. If their hands were just flat, they'd all be neo-Nazis, wouldn't they? Isn't that what happens? See, Kyle? Oh, wow. Oh, this is in Brisbane. They're protesting the Adani coal mine. And notice a lot more girls than boys. A lot more girls than boys. It was not immediately clear which candidate or party the students would campaign for adults to vote on the May 18th federal election, as the email said they would be calling on all adults to vote climate for their futures. Oh, I guarantee you, we've seen this before where it's like Get Up are behind it and other political lobbying organizations, activists are behind it. They're using children for this. So if you're a young person watching this and just, going, "Oh, you stupid old guy, you don't know about the future, yada, yada, yada," wake up. You're being used. Okay? You're a tool for these people. That's it. Then they'll cast you aside. So Brisbane student Sarah McCoy, 16, of course, 16, so much experience. I'm sure I knew everything about the world, or I thought I did when I was 16, said Australia lacks leadership on climate change. With the election just around the corner, we want to send a message to politicians that young people are not going to stay quiet. Well, you know what? Honestly, you'll get what you want. You'll get a green recession that will reduce our carbon footprint by 2 to 3% a year, and then you'll never get a job. Your quality of life will decrease. You will never get a job, and you'll have to go overseas to get work, or you'll just be on the dole your whole life. Sarah, you won't live as good a life as your parents did. You won't. We're in a climate crisis. No, we're not. This is the thing. Now, look at this here. Climate crisis. And everyone, I had some idiot say on, I don't know, something, Reddit or Facebook, they're just nutters, saying that, "Oh, haven't you seen that the temperature's hotter now than it ever was?" And they personalize it and they're just responding to media things. Like Labor's climate policy, they're referring to flooding. And you look at, at all these recent floods is a sign that we've got climate change. And that's what it's showing you. They're no different to religious fanatics who are arguing that the moon going over, the eclipse going over the temple, it's causing the rapture or something. Okay, I'm just rambling here, but you can see the similarities that I'm trying to draw here. It's where's the crisis? Where's the crisis? Floods have been going on for hundreds of years. Fires have been going on for hundreds of years, even before we had industrialization. So it's kind of a joke. Anyway, there's no surprise here. But I want to go through this article. This is what I really wanted to read today. The Climate Change Cult, 10 Warning Signs. And this is from AEI. And let's have a read. Earth Day 2019 is just a few days away on April 22nd. And this is the first in a series of CD posts over the next few days to help you observe the 49th Green Holy Day. A few days ago on the CD post, Mitchell Critchin in 2003, Environmentalism is a Religion, I provided a link to an article on medium.com titled Climate Change and the 10 Warning Signs for Cults that started like this. Have you thought to yourself that climate change movement seems more and more like a religious movement? I have, so I researched how to identify a religious cult. Rick Ross, an expert on cults and intervention specialist, developed a list of 10 warning signs for unsafe groups, which is published by the Cult Education Institute. So let's take a look at all 10 signs and compare. So let's jump down to the 10 warning signs. So number 1, absolute authoritarianism without meaningful accountability. The leading advocates of the climate change movement are politicians, entertainers, and even children. Even children. Climate preachers such as Al Gore and Leonardo DiCaprio lack any formal scientific training whatsoever and live personal lives of unparalleled luxury while prescribing carbon austerity for the masses. Yet no one is permitted to point out their scientific ignorance or call attention to their hypocritical lifestyles. Well, yeah, that's true. You know, that's completely true. Here we go. They add an addition. AOC and 16-year-old Greta Thunberg to the list of climate preachers without any formal scientific training. Yes. Well, yeah, you got 2 more there. Child advocates such as Greta Thunberg and the crudely indoctrinated children of the Sunrise Movement and our own climate change protests are essentially sock puppets for their shameless activist handlers. Sorry, so they weren't tools, they're sock puppets. They're sock puppets, yes. I'm seeing on OzPol, there's a Facebook group I'm in, and there's people that are just sock puppets that just spit out the same propaganda all the time. Refuse to bend a knee to these tiny fascists, as Dianne Feinstein most recently did, and the mainstream left will relentlessly attack you as an accessory to mass murder. I don't think anyone can disagree with that. That's all true. We've seen it. It's a fact. That's a complete fact. 2, no tolerance for questions or critical inquiry. The conclusions of the climate change movement may not be challenged or questioned under any circumstances. Those who dare scrutinize the conclusions, methodology, or prescriptions of climate scientists, this is the new priestly class for their religion, are categorically dismissed as a climate denier, an excommunicated untouchable whose opinion is no longer valid on any subject. Yes, we've seen that. 3, no meaningful financial disclosure regarding budget expenses, such as an independently audited financial statement. Now, this is really interesting because we're waiting to see Labor's response to, or Labor's economic estimate. How much will their policies affect our economy? And the response is, we need to act. It costs too much not to act. But they'll never tell you how much it costs to act, because I guarantee you they haven't done the budget. No chance. Why bother? They don't need to tell anyone. It's all emotional manipulation. Hardly anyone knows just how much money is spent on climate research every year. The cost is spread out among laughably useless study grants, wind and solar farm subsidies, carbon offset credits, green building code evaluation and enforcement. Oh, yes. Salaries for bureaucrats solely dedicated to climate concern. You get the idea, a lot of hazy money. Yes, we've seen that here in Australia. And I agree with that one. Another tick. So we've got 3 out of 3 so far. 4, unreasonable fear about the outside world, such as impending catastrophe, evil conspiracies, and persecutions. Now, what's the impending catastrophe? Don't we have 12 years to allow the United Nations to take control of the entire world to stop climate change? This one's pretty obvious. The climate change movement always shouts out revised and updated apocalypse predictions, eerily reminiscent of the stereotypical bum on the sidewalk with that end of near sign. The world will end in X, which is 12 years if we don't do X, is the constant refrain. The years always pass, and the apocalypse never happens. Interestingly, this is a characteristic of multiple religious cults, such as the Seekers of Chicago and the Order of the Solar Temple, and the Jehovah's Witnesses. Just keep going back. At the moment, we apparently have 12 years to nationalize the entire economy and phase out fossil fuels before we all die a fiery death. Yeah, you'll talk to people like this, and this is how they'll respond. They can't have a rational question about it. They'll say, we need to do it. No price is too high. 5. 4 out of 4, hey? 5. There is no legitimate reason to leave. Former followers are always wrong in leaving, negative or even evil. So, yeah, this is the shunning of former members. Climate alarmists who leave, step back from, or even lightly criticize the movement are immediately subjected to vicious smear campaigns. Dutch professor Richard Tol experienced this phenomenon firsthand when he removed his name from an IPCC climate report and criticized the report's excessively apocalyptic predictions. Yeah, this can't surprise anyone, but it's just seeing it all here in context laid out. How many cults have you heard of that are like this? 6. Former members often relate the same stories of abuse and reflect of similar patterns of grievances. Professor Tol is not an anomaly. Dr. Richard Lidson of MIT, Dr. Niels Axel Mornau, and countless other former IPCC in-crowd climate experts were subjected to smear campaigns from their colleagues, the news media, for the crime of throwing cold water on the outlandish predictions of the climate change movement. Now, if this is really a rigorous scientific debate, you shouldn't need to have smear campaigns. You shouldn't need to do ad hominem attacks on the person. You should just attack the position. And another person shared an article about me. Well, I found a piece in Forbes critical of biofuels and critical of solar and wind. And they immediately attacked the author of the article. And everything they provided to me was an attack on the author, or a subtle misinterpretation of what he was putting forward and attacking that. And you can't see it. If you're in this bubble, in this mindset, you're just looking for evidence to back up your claims. You're just looking for evidence to back it up. To me, this just looks like dangerous slide to socialism, and this is just another one of the many techniques that's being used. So there are records, books, news articles, or television programs that document the abuse of the group leader. The abuses of the climate change movement are loud and proud. They viciously attack their perceived enemies for public consumption and are cheered on by fellow travelers in the journalism class. Most recently, they brainwashed a bunch of kids and marched them into an octogenarian Democrat senator's office to beg not to murder by a no vote on impossible legislation. Okay, see that? That's before what's happened here. So the same thing that's happening over in the States is being done here. It's the same activists. Your kids are being used as sock puppets. Kids should wake up. They really should. Followers feel they can never be good enough. They can never be good enough. The atonement process for climate warriors always demands more. It starts with using a recycling bin and grocery bags. Well, we've learned recently in another episode, and I'll link to it at the beginning of this one, or I should already have, that recycling here in Australia is a complete joke. That it's all getting sent over to Malaysia and burned. So, there you go, hippies. So rather than burning it here, we're processing it using energy there, and we're shipping it over to Malaysia using all that energy to transport it. So it would actually be better for the environment. It would be better for the environment to burn it here than over there. But it's not in my backyard, so you'll feel good. It's fine. I understand. You're snobs. You're just snobs. That's it. I understand. It's okay. Once you admit that, once you realize that, then that's the process in healing. So now, let's get back to the article. Now in 2019, being a good follower means imposing veganism on the masses and issuing fatwas against the innocuous objects such as plastic straws and grocery bags. Yeah, well, we're getting that. I can't get a grocery bag in Queensland anymore thanks to these bloody idiots. Okay, I want to go shopping and get a plastic bag to carry my stuff home, and then I will use it again at home. I can't get one because they've said no. Despite all the efforts of the faithful, climate minions maintain a constant state of dread and despair, knowing they can never truly do enough to stop the coming doom. Yeah. Yep. Number 9, the group leader is always right. When have the climate leaders been called wrong for their failed predictions, regardless of whether they are always intrinsically correct? Flood, climate change. Yep. Drought, climate change. No snow, climate change. Too much snow, climate change. Hurricane, climate change. Lack of hurricanes, climate change. See how that works? Yeah. Guys, it's a religion. Seriously. You know, there's plenty of other ones out there. You know, I'd steer people towards Christianity, but then again, I wouldn't steer people towards anything. You have to find it yourself. But come on, there's plenty of better ones than this. And this, you'll turn into a weak soy boy that hugs trees. You know, become a gym bro, even that'd be better, wouldn't it? The group leader is the exclusive means of knowing truth or revealing validation. No other process of discovery is really acceptable or credible. The path to discovery for the climate change movement is an intentionally vague discipline referred to as climate science. Did you carry out a study on gender and glaciers? Climate science. Did you think up the worst possible scenarios that have no actual chance of happening? Actual portion of the latest National Climate Assessment? Climate science. Well, yeah. Any science that confirms that the tenets of the climate change movement is deemed climate science, while actual scientific research that disputes their conclusion is derided as denialism. Well, yeah, anyone who has worked in any professional capacity with an energy assessment model or anything like that, at least in the building game, you know how crap it is. You know how terrible that is, how inaccurate it is. So, you know, if we can't get it at that level of complexity, how can we get it at the 100-year level of complexity, you know, with a much more complex system? So the verdict, it's a cult. According to the established scientific guidelines developed by cult experts, the climate change movement fits the bill for a potentially unsafe group. Rather than debating climate change activists, it may be time to start staging interventions. If someone you know is a member of the climate change movement and you are interested in intervention strategies, please visit. So they've got here. So we might look at that at another time. But guys, what do you think? What do you think? Does this make it sound like it's a cult, regardless of your position on it? Because all of these things, these 10 issues that they said here, if this was about any other organization, if this was a family member joining a religious group and all these issues were highlighted, you would be worried out of your mind. You would be worried out of your mind. Don't tell me you wouldn't. If you weren't worrying, you wouldn't care about them. So, you know, this is a cult, guys. This really is a cult. Let me know if you've got any plans to intervene and save someone. But please like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you all again tomorrow. Bye for now.